hear you. There we go.
Hello.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good.
So glad you agreed to do this.
No. Um, I was a little, I told my husband, I don't know. He's like, oh, just say yes.
Well, after we were talking on the last Q&A and just some of the things you were saying, I was like, wow, I think a lot of people could benefit from hearing you speak about what you've experienced going through pattern partnerships so far and working with me.
Yeah.
So I would appreciate you sharing your experience and letting me and other people know what you like about the program and what you don't like.
Honestly, I am so happy that I decided to join. I remember that I kept getting your newsletter emails and I read them and I always felt like, like, yes, why is this not working the way I want it to work? Like, so they made me question myself. So one day when I saw that you were launching the program, I talked to my husband. I said, I don't know, should I do this? Should I not do this? And he said, like, why not? You're going to learn, you're investing in yourself. And if you start, like, if this works for you, then you don't even have to like put any money into it, because the sales that you're going to generate from what you're learning are going to pay for it. So I'm like, he's always the one that sees things like that. I'm like, okay, I'm signing up. Give me your
You should
credit
talk
card.
to him.
Yeah. And yeah, and then it started, and I was like, it really caught my attention that you started talking about the way that we don't talk about our older stuff, and that we just like kind of forget about things, and we don't show up being excited about what we've done. And then I thought, like, yeah, that's true. Like, I have things that I have designed that I really love, and I never talk about them. Like, why don't I talk about my stuff? So
Yeah, and I like to think of it like it's not milk. Our patterns don't go stale. They're still fresh and new. Just because we are just like, we're over it, that doesn't mean that new people who are discovering you won't find value in it and say, oh, this is exactly what I want. And I like to tell my clients, I had a couple coaching calls today, and I mentioned to them, like, you are being selfish when you don't share those old patterns. Because there are people who are now discovering you, and they would kill for those patterns and to learn from you, and you not sharing it is just you being selfish. What do you think about that?
yeah, no, I think that, yes, like I think that sometimes we fall in those, like, we are always looking for the
new shiny,
but
yes.
yeah, but we forget that some people maybe are just discovering us, and maybe something that we've done before is something that they would really love. And also at the same time, if you're going to spend like all this time needing something, you have to love it, like at the end, it has to be something that you really love. And if you keep talking about it and people like start noticing things that maybe you haven't noticed in your own design, that they feel that it resonates with them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I think for us as designers, we forget about the journey that we were on at that stage when we were knitting that thing. So maybe since we've knitted that sock or that shawl, we've developed new skills that we forget about the people who are now discovering that technique and who needs to learn in the way that you teach.
Yeah. No, yes. And it has really worked for me to go back and kind of talk about my patterns. I mentioned that I do it on Thursdays, the Throwback Thursday thing. And it has worked, because sometimes I just like maybe mention like 3 things that I remember that I like when I did the pattern. And then I have people who comment and say like, oh, I already done this pattern and I really love this other thing. Or, so you kind of discover new stuff at the same time, because it's not something that you're working on right now.
But so you forget. You forget about those little nitty gritty things that were like really interesting back then. And now it's like, Oh yeah, seeing it through a new knitter's eyes, it's just like, oh yeah, I remember when I was knitting that cuff and I felt like this, and it's like, oh
Yes, yeah, and it works. I said, like, I always, like, when I can hear your voice in my head, like, be excited about your designs. So I'm really trying to, like, bring that
yeah,
back again when I post, like, really, like, try to sound enthusiastic and happy, and try to connect with people in a way that they feel like, I really need to knit this because I want to feel this way.
absolutely. And one of the things I recommend if you are not feeling in those moods when you're talking about it, try knitting it again or start on it again. Maybe it's a sock and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to cast on, and all those emotions might come up again that you can talk about. And now you have new content because you can go and talk about, when I first knit it, I felt like this, but now I'm knitting this thing again for the second or fifth time. This is what I feel like, having these new eyes and more experience.
Yes, no, yeah. And I think that it also gives you a chance to show your things in different colors and different, like, so yeah, I really been trying to implement that.
Yeah.
And it has worked for me.
So how does it work? Like in tangible ways?
In tangible ways, I have seen that I have sales. That
Sales is good.
Yes. So before I would have like sales on release days, or the first 3 or 4 days of me releasing a pattern, and then they would stall, and maybe I would have like a couple of sales here and there during the months, But now I'm seeing that I have sales during the week and constantly. So just not when I release a pattern, but also if I mention a pattern that I already worked on before, I see that people are starting to like go to my website. They are buying the pattern. They are posting about it. They are, so it has generated some buzz, and in a tangible way, I can see it because I can see that I'm selling.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I love to talk about when I say, show your older stuff, is I don't want people to always constantly be designing new things. Of course, we get inspired all the time, but like I mentioned, it's this roller coaster of constantly putting out new designs when all our old stuff is just as good, that you can be reselling and continuing to make sales from, to free up some of your time. Because if you have kids, and in these pandemic days, we have to be parent and teacher and employee and all these things. Having those resources or those patterns selling in the background can really help us.
Yes, it does, because it also, like, I don't know for other designers, but for me it takes time. Like, it's not like I snap my fingers and I have, a new pattern.
No.
So, it takes time. Like, I have to knit it, I have to take the pictures, I have to write the pattern, I have to talk about it. Like, it's a whole
tech editing,
happens behind, So it is good to know that I don't have to be rushing to come up with new things all the time. And I can just maybe say, okay, I'm going to design maybe this more complex thing that is going to take me a longer
time.
But I have like all these other stuff that I have designed that I can keep I can talk about and still have some sales.
So how many patterns do you have for sale right now?
I think I have 23 or 24 patterns.
So that's a lot, but it's not like 100 patterns where have such a massive catalog that someone who is a newer designer can't see themselves, doing similar work, sharing their older pattern. Even if you have like 5 patterns, you can still use these techniques to show patterns that you did, a year ago or 6 months ago, to keep recycling those.
Yeah, and it helps, like, yes, and it helps to have like different, not always do the same thing. So you can sometimes talk about like I did this, and then talk about I did that. I'm trying to like think for the new year Like, what am I going to do? Maybe I want to talk about the patterns, like match them with the seasons, or maybe, or maybe I want to just talk about one old pattern during the whole month and like really push that pattern all that month while I keep working on new stuff, but at the same time. So I'm trying to decide what I want to do with my old patterns. Like, do I want to, I don't know, maybe do like a little shawl collection thing for 2 or 3 months and then just talk about those and then do a sock thing. And I don't know. I've been like trying to, I even got my planner and everything. I feel like, oh, I'm feeling excited about it.
So what I love about this is that for a lot of us designers, when we first start out and we're just constantly putting out new work, we don't have this opportunity to strategize and to future plan for things. But now that you have the space to not be putting out patterns on such a rapid pace because you have your back catalog that's selling in the background, it gives you this time to kind of visualize what you want instead of just like, oh, well, I need to put out something because I need to make money. No, you can sit back and like really think about, what do I want for the new year? And try to strategize. Is it colors? Is it seasonal? Is it whatever? And now you have like more breathing room.
Yes. And it feels good. Honestly, it feels really good because sometimes there's like a lot of other things happening in life and you don't have time. You don't have time to like, and it sounds silly, but you really don't have time to think about what you want to say or what you want to do. And sometimes I feel like when you just respond to things without planning, they don't really work as well as when you plan and then you kind of stick to your plan.
Yes, and that's what we're talking about in January, about creating our content plans and strategies, because I think that if we have the opportunity to take a step back and be a CEO of our business and not just be the worker bee every day, it gives us an opportunity to say, okay, well, I want to go in this direction and can really work on the things that will get us there instead of just reacting every day, and then you end up in a direction where you're like, I didn't even want to be here, right?
Yeah.
So instead of just reacting all the time, we're being proactive and we can head in a direction that we want.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming up in January.
Yes, I'm excited about that. Yeah.
And one of the things we talk a lot about also in Pattern Partnership is about focusing. And a lot of what you've been talking about appears perfectly, because if you're in Pattern Partnership, we have an accountability thread where every Monday we ask you what you're doing. On Wednesday, we do a check-in, and then Friday, let us know how you do. And some people might have noticed that I've gone into their posts and I'm like, so what does this mean when you're, on Monday when you're telling us what you're going to do? And it's like, but what is that going to do? And it's just a clue for people to just focus in on like, what is the point of what you're doing? Is it just to be busy? Because we can be busy all day, but we want to do things that are actually generating revenues, that's moving us in the direction that we want for our businesses.
Yes, and I have loved them. Like, I felt that this has really helped me to really have a plan. And then I love that at the end of the week, I'm like, oh, maybe I didn't do all the things, but I did like most of the things, or maybe the things that I didn't complete are just like things that are going to take me 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I'm done. And I have felt like it has really helped me like be on track of what I want to do. And also it has helped me have like be better organized. Like before I would be just like, oh, I just have to finish this, or but not really with the intention of, okay, why am I going to I'm going to spend a lot of time doing this. Is this going to be good or not for me? Like, is it worth it? Or maybe I should do something else. And it has really helped. It has really helped. Like, okay, I feel like you're keeping us on track. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's that accountability that I'm like, because I've been there. I used to be like, ooh, idea. I'm going to go. And it's like, I didn't have that when I started out. And that's exactly what I want to provide to you guys, because I know what staying focused and being intentional can do for your business. And if you just kind of stick with it, show up, do the work like you have been, you're constantly in there like, okay, I'm doing this. I've done this. This is
Yeah.
next. And I'm like, ooh, that's a good idea. And we all kind of feed off of each other too in that group.
Yeah, and it's been, yes, and I like that it's been like if you have a question or something that, sometimes it can be a little bit lonely when you're like designing, because you kind of, I don't know, you feel like you're stuck in your own thing. But it's good to have other people to bounce your ideas off with and be like, okay, maybe if I do this, or maybe somebody can be like, no, this worked for me, so maybe you can try that, and you see, you see what you want to take and what you feel that works for you, and then you kind of like start figuring things out and not feel so alone in the process.
Yeah. And that's what I love is like we're all in there sharing our experience, but we're not saying you do this, but we're sharing what we've done, and you can take it if you want.
Yeah.
And I love that about the group.
Yeah, it's a good group.
I think piggybacking on what you said about, designing being so lonely, that's why I want to do like a co-working spot where we all can like come together on Zoom and just kind of like, if we're knitting, we knit. If we are writing a pattern, we write a pattern, but have other faces that we can talk to.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking to your husband about your pattern and he doesn't get it, it's not the same.
Yeah, no, it's not the same. Sometimes he just looks at me, he's like,
okay.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just listening. Like,
yeah, and I mean, you
can't ask
him. You can't ask him, should I put a ribbon on this? Should I do a some sort of brim? And he's just like, ah. But if you have a group of people who knows what you're talking about, it's so much easier to have those conversations.
It is because sometimes you don't have all the solutions, or sometimes like maybe you think like the way you're doing it is the best, and then comes someone that has like a lot of experience in whatever it is that you're doing. It's like, no, you know what, this other thing really works, and then you can like kind of try it and it's like, oh,
yeah,
yes, yeah.
And sometimes it just makes you realize like, oh, I do have the answer. I just needed somebody else to kind of give me permission to say, okay, I guess I should. Because that's another thing we've been talking about is taking breaks. And it's like, it's okay if you don't feel like posting this week, especially the holiday week. I know a few of us are like, okay, after Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm done. I'm just going to go knit. And that's fine. Because we have these systems in place that is, we're posting, we're making money on the back end with some of our older patterns, so we don't have to keep pushing out the new stuff so much.
Yeah, and it's good. I'm really looking forward to like disconnecting for a little bit and doing some selfish knitting and following someone else's pattern. It helps like to not to have to take notes every row.
Exactly. Just kind of just blindly follow somebody else's pattern.
Yes, and trust that this is going to work at the end, like I'm not going to look at it and be like, oh, I messed up here or something. Like, yeah.
You have to go back and write out the notes. Nope, no more of that. It's just I want to knit and just enjoy it.
Yes,
and I think for a lot of us designers, we don't do that enough.
No, we don't, because we have to choose our time, We have to choose our time wisely. So sometimes we have to skip on other things that I think that we would enjoy, because we have to do the work things.
Yeah.
We also enjoy, but
it's work.
It is work. At the end of the day, it is still work. You still need to sell this or do something with it, or or someone sent you the yarn and you cannot just like disappear. You have to okay, I'm working with your yarn. So yeah,
we've been having a lot of conversations in the Facebook group about yarn support, and I have a problem with this and I have an issue with this, and we're just kind of like coming together, and like some of us have more experience than others, and some have done a thing that others haven't done. It's just I just love going in there and kind of reading through and kind of like snooping to see what you guys are doing, and like, hey, that's a great idea. Or if there's a question asked, I don't jump in and answer. I'm like, let's see what other people think.
No,
and you guys come up with the best answers.
I do read through all of the posts and answers, because you always learn something. I don't have all the answers, and sometimes I'm like, I also have that question. I want to know what they say. Like, someone please, shed some light into this, because now that she's asked, I just realized that I
Yeah.
always wanted to know this as well.
And I didn't know I needed that answer.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't know until you see someone else asking, and then you're like, I've been wondering the same thing. Like, I don't know how this works, or and sometimes each of us make our rules, but it's good to see, oh, like, I feel like I've noticed that in a lot of things it kind of it's the same, maybe like we kind of all have like the same ideas, but different ways of doing things or whatever. But it's like, it's interesting.
And that's what I love about the group, because we're all on the same journey together, and we're all at different points. Some of us are more experienced, some of us are just starting out, and it's just like, I love seeing like the new baby designers, and I like seeing like the more experienced designers, because it's like, oh, I remember being brand new with my first pattern and not knowing what a tech editor is or a tester, and others who are talking about contracts with big brands and things like that. So that's the spectrum that we're dealing with, and I love seeing all of us sharing our experience and supporting each other.
Yes, and it's nice because in a way, if you are a new designer, you get to see like these people, like they really gone somewhere with this, and you can look forward to things like that.
Yeah.
And also, if you have more experience in some things, you can see like, yes, I remember like when I was just starting and I felt like this, or I remember when my first pattern, I was like, well, I don't even know if I should publish this or not. So nervous. I have like a stitch count for every row. I was like, like really, because I didn't want to make a mistake, and at the same time, it's scary to put like your things out there.
Yeah.
But it is always nice to take that first step and see like, okay, I've got this. Like I think I can manage it. Like I can do this. And if I have a question, like there's people that I can ask, and so it's nice. It is nice to have both sides and kind of meet at the middle and be like, oh, yeah, we can still get excited.
And it's funny that you talk about some of the scary things, because some of the first questions I asked, like a lot of you guys were a little scared with my questions. Like, I don't know if I should answer this, but it's like, we really need to get to the root of some of these things, these fears that are internalized. And once we can figure out those fears, the sky's been the limit for a lot of us.
Yes, especially when it's like something that is more in your head,
Yeah.
And it's hard because you battle with those things, but then you see like all these other people have the same fear.
All these other people.
So maybe this is something that like I need to take out of my brain for a little bit and say, what if I just like follow my heart and what I want to do and not think of this big monster that I have created in my head, and just give it a try.
Just give it a try. That's all we ask.
So it's easier said than done.
So before we wrap up, what would you tell someone who's like, I don't think pattern partnership is for me. It's just a bunch of time waste or whatever.
I would tell them that if they are looking for some like for a way to keep like your eyes on the goal and to start like really not chasing shiny objects, but like really just like trying to just get to a point, to a goal that you have, and that you will find a place where you are encouraged, where you are heard, where you can help others as well. And for me, it has really been worth it. I've really enjoyed it. I have seen not only like the community part of it, that we all help each other and everything, but I also have seen the sale part of it. Like it has increased my sales. I would say that from maybe having like 10 cents sales in a month, if I was like being really good with something, now sometimes I have 8 sales in a week. So for me, it's a big jump.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And, you
And it's
know,
just the beginning.
yeah. And it's not like on something that I just released. It's on something that I already have. So I think for me, it's been a really good investment. And it's also, when you invest in learning, that's something that no one can take away from you. Like you will always have the things that you've learned. So I think that's what I would tell them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time out of your day, to come chat with me today. And I really appreciate having you in the group, sharing everything that you share, because I'm watching you and I'm like, so cool.
No, thank you. Thank you. I really enjoy it. I am so glad that that my husband did that little push, like, go and sign up for that. And yeah.
Absolutely. And he made a great point that it should be making you back whatever you've invested. And it looked like it has. And I cannot wait to see all the things that you continue to do, because like I say in the group, I'm nosy. So I'm like, oh, what are you up to now? And I go to your Instagram and I go to your Facebook and I go to all your things, and I like to check out yours and all the other participants.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I do the same thing. I want to see what everybody's making, like, because I hear them talk about it every Monday, So I want to see what happened with whatever they said that they were doing. And it is exciting to just and it's also nice to just, I don't know, cheer for others, I think it comes back to you at the end. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's get the pom-poms out and let's cheer each other on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me and talking to me. And
absolutely.